This is video 80 of 101. This video is about art. There's this huge battle in the world between art versus science and which one makes you smarter, and if going on an art route or a creative route is easier than going on like a scientific or mathematic route. And personally, I find that science as itself, like, it's not really art versus science. I think that art is this huge umbrella term, and that I think science actually falls under art. Let me explain. Because art is kind of divvied up into two different categories. There's the creative part of art where you're thinking and creating and brainstorming, and then there's the actual doing part of it where you're actually moving your hand and creating those things. And there's creativity, of course, in that, but it's a lot about just doing. And I think science is kind of the same thing. I mean, you have to creatively think about, what do we want to discover? What is that thing? How can we discover this? What are the tactics that are going to get us there? There's a lot of creativity involved in science, and I think in that sense science is an art form. I think that there's no battle between them. I think that they can cohesively exist together. And so there's no art versus science, it's just art, and science is one of those arts. You know, it's making something, it's critically thinking, it's being creative, it's finding a solution. And so art, I find, is a huge umbrella term that can mean little things. That is just thinking and being creative and creating something in your head and then making that an actual thing in the world. That is amazing. I think that that is probably one of the most incredible parts about being human, is the fact that we can visualize things and then we can actually hold them with our hand at some point. Like, that's incredible. Art is not just painting, art is not just drawing. Those are just, you know, maybe traditional forms of media, but art in itself is this huge umbrella term that captures conversations that we have. It captures the way that we design the magnets on our fridge, the grocery list that we make, just the list in our head that we make. Art is the way that I design my shelf. Art is the way that you see the world. I think so much of life is about art. Art is just about creating a vision that you see. And that can literally be anything that you want. And so science is definitely one of those art forms for sure. Science is definitely a very interesting part of art. There are obviously much more like technical sides to science, but if you think about it, there are very technical sides to art too. Like when you're painting something, like once you have that vision, you know what you're doing, you're just doing it. Like there's not a whole lot of creativity in the actual action of creating these traditional art forms. It's more the creativity in creating the idea first, and that's the same thing with different sciences. Because basically science, at the very top of it, is seeing something and figuring out how to know more about that. And so that figuring out, that's the creativity, that's the art form of it. And so obviously there are so many other jobs within science that may not be as creative, but if you think about art as itself, you know, art has that creative side and then art has that technical side. And so with science, these jobs are just more spread out. Like an artist will pretty much do the whole process, but in science you have some of the people, like the scientists, that are doing the experiments, they're creating these things, they're being the creative ones, and then you have people down the line who are just executing and they're doing the more technical stuff. So they would be more of a technical person, but that's totally fine. Obviously we have creative and we have technical people, but I just don't think that we should ever say which one is better than the other, because being creative, thinking about these things, creating, visualizing, that in itself is incredible, and obviously everyone can do that. But I think doing that as a job is definitely a difficult job, but it is no way to compare to a technical job. And I think just a technical job is just a totally different kind of job. None is better than the other. Personally, I would favor a creative job. I think that's more fun, but that's because I'm a creative person. I could never do a technical job, but a technical person could never do a creative job, and I think none is better than the other. They're just different. We can't compare them. Just like we can't compare genders or races or nationalities. They're all just different. None is better than the other. They're just unique in their own way. And when we start to appreciate their differences, when we really start to see the differences between these two different traits, we'll never try to make one be better than the other, and so we'll never have to ostracize one or the other. And that way in people, we'll never have to ostracize one of these traits or the other, and so that way we can just be exactly all of the traits that we want to be. Maybe you're 70% creative, but there's a little bit of technical side to you. We should never have to let go of that because we think it's not us. Or if you're a technical person but you still like to do creative things, that shouldn't have to stop you. So dividing them but saying one is better than the other, it can really make us lose parts of ourselves that we otherwise would have embraced. So is there, you know, who's smarter? People that are in science, people that are in art? I don't think anybody is smarter. And then tomorrow is going to be a video about intelligence. So what does intelligence mean? Are you smarter if you are a mathematician, or are you smarter if you are an artist? We shall see tomorrow.